Hey friends, we're starting kind of at the end of the process here, but about 5 or 6 weeks ago, I decided to do a pedalboard project, which I'll talk about in more detail in the next clip. But here's kind of the finished product of it, or at least for now, right? And I'll kind of walk you through that process, and then after that, join you up again right here and play through and kind of do a little more explanation about how the pedalboard is set up. So I hope you enjoy it. Okay, we've got a big mess out here. Got lots of pedals, cables, pedal boards strewn everywhere. There's a reason for it. So my main pedal board here, which is built on a pedal train Terra, is getting to be kind of big and pretty heavy to move, and the places I play are not as big anymore. So yeah, that can't be my main pedal board anymore. So I've had this Pedal Train Classic 2 here. It's upside down right now. But been using that for gigs lately, but it doesn't have my favorite stuff on it. It's got, grab and go, a simplified version, which has been good. So the solution, I was thinking about trying to fit everything cool on here, but it doesn't quite work. I'm a little shy on space, so what I'm going to do is I've already purchased one that's the same depth as this one, but it's going to be 4 inches longer, and I think I'll be able to get everything on there that I want. And so some of my favorite stuff, like the Ventilator, the Kingsley Minstrel, my favorite homemade lead overdrive, stuff like that will be going onto that board. A bunch of my Strymon stuff, wherever it went there, some of it. Anyway, so I've pulled everything apart. As you can see, all the wiring underneath the board, where I use these mounts for zip ties. My power supply is under there, and got everything pulled off and into this bin, plus a few cables I bought to try. Got my regular bin of pedalboard stuff, Velcro, zip ties, whatnot. And incidentally, that piece of wood here is from my first pedal board. It's cut down. Got my screw gun, other stuff here, my Princeton to try stuff, a Strat. Got some podcasts to listen to while I'm messing with things here. And also, I've got a book which I keep schematics and notes on things. And so in that book, I've got notes from the last pedal board build, which have power requirements for each of the pedals, so I know how to wire it. And then when I get it set up, I take notes on where things are plugged in. So on the pedal powers or the O-high, like which one has the output for what pedal. So if something goes wrong, I can quickly figure it out without having to trace everything. Got a card for pulling up pedals with Velcro, some risers, and there's my little piece of wood that I use in the studio. So that's my kind of direct injection pedal board with a Cali 76, my favorite compressor and a tuner. And then right now it's been the Dr. Robert on there, but we'll see. So solutions. I've ordered a Pedal Train Junior Max, I believe it's called, and it's the same depth as this, so like a solid 2 rows of pedals, but it is a little bit wider, about 4 inches or so, which should be able to get all my favorite stuff on there, a bunch of Strymon stuff. Each 9's been a go-to for like a grab and go because it can do so many things, but I don't like the tone as much as Strymon stuff. So I'm gonna see if I can get the Mobius and a timeline, and then maybe I'll have room for in the Flint on there. got like a homemade clone for a booster at the end, just a clean boost. Things like that. So we'll see how it goes. This is first step. Hopefully have the new board here in a couple days, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this my studio board, and I'll probably take and use this one for a 4-cable method with channel switching amps, and I'll use like a HXFX or a Fractal FX8 on there, plus maybe my wireless unit. And so I'll have, I think, the channel switching rig, my main pedal board, and I'll have the studio pedal board. I think that's going to do it. So let's see how it works. In the corner of the studio here, I've got my large pedal board and a bunch of the unused pedals. Have enough cabling, but I don't have enough power supplies to wire it up, but I'll at least have some stuff right now that I can grab and take and use for recording. And over here are the 2 pedal boards so far, and top there is a small one, and it's been completely redone, recabled, and the one here on the bottom is the new pedal board, which will be my main one. And I've been playing it, I've had this set up for a couple days now. Really enjoying them, both of them. My main pedal board, really ecstatic about. I think it's a good size. I like the arrangement of pedals. I did have the Mobius where the deco and the flashback are. They're just sitting there for the moment. But I'm thinking Mobius will be taken off, and then either those pedals or maybe some combination with this Retosonic chorus, which is like a CE1 chorus ensemble, will go on there. So I'm playing around with it. Sometimes you put everything together and you're just like, I could probably do a little change on it. So that's easy enough to do. And while I'm doing that, there's my buddy Arlo Tar, and just started listening to his newest video while I'm working on the pedal board. So I'm going to have some fun and listen to this. Go check out his channel. Okay, so here we are back. I'm going to play through this and explain how I have things set up. But let me tell you, I just have my, I put together Strats, and this is one of them: alder body, maple neck, single hum. It's the basics. Got it going into the pedal board. Pedal board is going into my 78 Princeton that's kind of tucked down back behind there. And that's mic'd up with an SM57 going into my Focusrite interface into Logic. And you'll hear just a little bit of reverb from Valhalla in Logic because it'll just give it a little more width to it because it's a little bit boring to listen to in just completely straight mono. So my rig is laid out for mono. I can connect some of it up in stereo, but for live playing, just do mono. So where normally I'd use the Flint on quite a bit for reverb, it'll just be the Valhalla in the box. So. All right, let me show you how it's set up. So again, this is my main pedal board now. And I've got it to where I can have a few options. And so I'm sure it'll change. It'll continue to evolve. But this is the way it is right now. I have a couple, I guess you would say, guest pedal spots. And so I can drop in other fuzzes into the first position here. No, there's, just for things run off a battery. And I would also use a wah pedal before this. I have a Wilson vintage wah. I can't remember what the model is, but think late 60s kind of Vox wah sound. And it goes into the board, straight into the fuzz, and it's got tuner. Tuner goes to the looper, and the looper goes on out to the amp. And we're done. No. Okay, so I have 2 loops set up. And the reason I've done that is that I like to have a lead in a rhythm sound. I can preset it, so obviously I'm using pedals and I don't have any sort of MIDI switching here. So I'm able to set presets in the middle of songs and then just switch between them as I need. So for like a lead or rhythm tone. And either loop can be lead or rhythm, although I kind of tend to think of the lower loop here more as, or the first loop as rhythm and the last loop as lead, but it can go either way. So I kind of got the idea from Eric Johnson. He uses 2 AB boxes, and that allows him clean rhythm, and then dirty rhythm, or dirty lead. And so, again, for somebody that's using like primarily stomp boxes, it works out really well. And because this looper pedal, I know I've got the microphone in front of it a little bit here, but it's got 2 switches. You know, this is one of those from back in the day, if you remember, like the gear page. It's a looper with 3 O's in it. But it's just a simple passive looper. And I've got some of the foot switch buttons on there so that it makes it easy. I just kind of shift my left foot sideways a little bit, and I can hit both of them at the same time and have kind of an instantaneous change between lead and rhythm loops in there. So in the first loop here, I already got the fuzz here. Let me just play a little bit of that for you. So everything's off. And so on. Tuner is a Sonic Research ST300 turbo tuner, which is fantastically accurate. It has a soft switch on it. It's my favorite tuner. And then the first loop is an Mxr Studio Compressor, and I've talked about it already, the Cali Origin Effects Cali 76, which is my favorite compressor, but this one has true bypass because I still have a fuzz after it, and it sounds pretty good. And for live playing, it does the job. It's a pretty transparent compressor, which is what I was looking for. From there into a Bogner Ecstasy Red, and it's basically the red channel, the lead channel of the Ecstasy amps, which is pretty high gain. And so this is kind of my high gain tone. So first of all, clean tone. And you see my switching is set up a little bit different on my strap, but here's the Ecstasy. And so it has a pretty wide range of gain, but I use that for higher gain tones, and that's through a tube rectified Princeton. So it's really tight through some of the bigger amps, but it sounds good. It has enough gain for even playing through a little amp. So also next to this, I have this blue pedal, which is one that I made, and it's a Silicone Fuzz face. So it has a BC108 and a BC183 in there. And bias control, I also have a switch that changes the input capacitor. And great sounding fuzz. I like both germanium and silicone fuzzes. So for live playing, those silicone, you're not going to have the temperature changes, and it stays pretty stable. But I usually don't run it just by itself into a clean amp. Often have another overdrive on after it. So if the amp is clean, it kind of simulates running into, say, like a dirty Marshall. This is what it sounds like by itself. And then can also put it into some other overdrive like the Minstrel. I really like it with the Deco's tape saturation. So with that and a little bit of delay, you got a really nice kind of vintage fuzz tone lead. Next to the fuzz face is a Kingsley Minstrel, and it's a vacuum tube overdrive, and it's running at full plate voltage, so it's much like having a tube preamp. It is a tube preamp on your pedal board, and it'll range from totally clean, you can use it as an EQ, a boost, all the way up to like pretty saturated, like vintage high gain kind of sounds. And it's warm and a little bit looser than, say, like the Ecstasy. It won't have that kind of tightness to it, but it's such a beautiful sound. And so it's kind of the center point of the board. And it's got 3 modes. I usually use it in the middle mode, and even just by varying your playing or your pickup selection on here, you can really pretty radically change the tone of the pedal. So it just becomes that nice platform, and again, by just making some small changes, you get a lot of different tones out of it. After that, Strymon Volante, tape echo, spring reverb, and just depending on how I want to set it. I do have some presets on here, so I can call those up pretty quickly, especially with the favorite switch. Right now, I just kind of have it set up as a pretty standard delay. This is in the studio mode. But for a nice bit of ambience, or maybe even using it for like some dotted 8 delays if you turn things up. And the spring reverb sounds really nice as well. Actually, it's better than the real spring reverb on my Princeton. And that finishes the loop. So even just within this loop, again, I can set up lead and rhythm tones, like have the Strymon for delay and have, say the minstrel and the compressor set up, and then use the other channel for rhythm, or use this for lead and have this for, just kind of like a spring reverb ambience. But second loop here starts at the Mxr Phase 95, which is basically a compact version of a Phase 90 and approximately a Phase 45 as well. You can switch the modes on it. A lot of times I'll use it kind of in the Van Halen area, going before my lead overdrive for some coloration to it. Or, if I'm playing clean, then I'll maybe bring up the rate on it. Or switch it into the Phase 45 mode. A great sounding pedal. That goes into the Lagrange right now. Lagrange can kind of come in out as needed. Basically have it set up for kind of a medium gain tone here. And kind of like what I like to just sit around and jam or play, or if I'm practicing. And then it has a boost, a clean boost as well. So if you're using it after the first loop, it'll be a volume boost for a solo. Or if you're using it in the second loop before the lead overdrive, it can be a gain boost if you want it. So just because it's sitting in the middle of the board, it can have that kind of flexibility. All right. This black pedal up here is another homemade pedal. You see, I really like these enclosures. And so this is a lead overdrive, and just kind of been tuning it, and at some time ago I just kind of found the sound of it and really, really like it. It's kind of smooth. It's got a lot of mid-range to it. So, and a fair amount of gain as well. You can get it like kind of lightly dirty all the way up to like pretty saturated, but the tones I was kind of going for it with, is to have that smooth singing, like a Mesa Boogie, like a Mark I type of lead tone. And with, say, like a Paul Reed Smith or something, it's great. I mean, it's just that smooth sound. Sounds great with the Strat too, but where the mid-range sits and how it's been voiced, it cuts through really well live, and it doesn't sound thin. It sounds really fat, but it just got the right sound to it. And so we'll usually run it with some delay, of course, after it. And can even add a little bit of tape flange after it. I really like that sound, like the like Hendrix Bold as Love or Matchstick Men, those kind of tape flanging sounds. They don't have any of the jet playing really that the electronic ones have. And this also has this tape saturation section, and which doubles as a really great overdrive. And when this came out, I wrote to Strymon, was talking on the forums and stuff, and said, hey, their video had showed it with a lot more gain because they're using it to push one of their two preamps, an old damage control one. It's like, hey, that sounds really good. Why don't you put that into the pedal? And so they did an upgrade after I made all these suggestions about it, and it was really cool because it made it a lot more versatile. I mean, as a tape saturator, you just keep the saturation control really low, but because they added a little to that top end of the knob sweep, now you've also got a great sounding overdrive as well. And you know, you would be surprised, you know, as you're listening to it, they go, oh, this is a digital pedal, but it sounds great. So got the compressor on here, but and so again, it can kind of cover some territory of the minstrel, but in the other loop. That makes it nice. And again, using the fuzz face into it, it'll just smooth out a little bit of the ragged high end and give it a little more sustain and saturation to it. So wonderful pedal. I have in the lead loop because I just need a delay, and have a timeline on the other board, and the Volante is sitting in the first loop. So this little flashback I just made using the app. I made a digital delay tone that's warmed up a bit, has a little bit of modulation. And so at lower mix levels, it makes a great lead delay like you heard with the lead pedal here. But then also, you can have it for like a more of a really nice, ambient, beautiful. Or with a little bit of that overdrive. Okay, we have the Neo Ventilator 2, which is my favorite Leslie simulator, rotary speaker simulator. Leslie simulators usually sound like crap. They don't sound like Leslie's. They sound, I don't know. But Rotosphere didn't really care for it. But this sounds really close to a Leslie, a recorded Leslie. And it's got a few different modes on it. So it's got a keyboard mode, which keeps the frequency response really accurate. You know, it has that little 800 hertz kind of notch in it where the crossover is. It can be a little bit bright, though, with guitar if you're playing live. And so usually I keep it in guitar mode 2, which is not a flat response like guitar mode 1, but it's a little bit in between the guitar and the keyboard mode, which is perfect because it gives me a frequency response that sounds good, but also it has a lot of that characteristic that you're used to hearing from the Leslie. And so I use it a couple different ways. The main way is, you know, pretty much like a stock Leslie. I'm gonna put the minstrel on before it so you can kind of hear it. The other thing that I like to do with it as well is turn the rotor mix all the way off, so you're getting a clean guitar tone through it. So it's like you're mixing in a Leslie, but since the rotor is off and it's just the horn, it's a lot like a Fender vibratone, and so you can get kind of those kind of classic tones. Here we have the Neo Ventilator 2, which is my favorite Leslie pedal, the most accurate sounding on the market by far. And love the classic Leslie tones. A lot of my favorite guitarists use them. And so I have it set up in a pretty standard way, like sound like a 122 or 147. And a little bit of overdrive with it. The other way I like to use it is to drop the rotor mix all the way out, so it gives you clean guitar being mixed with just the horn, which would be more like a vibratone. And last but not least, the Strymon Flint. Again, I have the Valhalla verb on there just to make it a little more listenable because coming into the rig here mono. But I have it set for usually like the 70s verb. And it's also got spring, like a 60s spring, and 80s more of a rack delay. And sounds wonderful. And also got some tremolo over here. So this is the harmonic tremolo. Sounds nice, or just a purely amplitude modulation only 63 tube tremolo, which is like the bias tremolo from old Fender amps, which is probably like the most classic sound to me. And then it's got the like mid 60s optical tremolo, like on a Fender Twin. Which has a more asymmetrical waveform. But it's always there, and you can, you know, kind of rock it with or do your favorite Smith's impression as well. So that's pretty much how it's set up. Can't remember if I talked about this or not, but in the guest spots can put other pedals in there. It's easy to take stuff out of here especially, or even this one. And so here's a small clone that I built, a clone of a small clone, but I put a delay time control on it and adjusted the frequency response. Great, you know, Bucket Brigade device chorus, classic. So I've been pretty happy with the setup of this. I'm missing chorus off of it. I could always add the chorus pedal on, and also kind of looking at some other chorus pedals that maybe I'll move some gear and put something on there. But usually when I'm playing at home, I don't use chorus. I do like having it, though, for playing live and with other people. It does sound nice. But I guess I just tend towards those sounds when I'm playing with others. So there it is. I hope you've enjoyed the video. You know, I just thought I would kind of document my own process in doing this. I'd like to do this every few years, kind of update things. And I'm really happy to kind of have a main pedal board now, because it's really solved the problem of my main board being way too big and I don't want to take it anywhere, and the small one not having enough stuff on it. So between this and the small one, being able to take those is fantastic. I still haven't done anything with the big pedal board. It just holds pedals over in the corner. But maybe I'll get another power supply at some time and then set that up again just for recording. So thanks for watching. Give me a thumbs up or comment. And if you aren't subscribed, would appreciate that as well. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed it. If you're a total gear nerd like me and just like to see what people do and with their rigs, yeah, it's just kind of fun to see how people do things, because we all do things a little bit differently. So this has worked out for me, and it's been a kind of a strategy or philosophy that I've been using about pedal boards for a long time, and it has just proven itself over and over. Now I do have a couple other setups. I have a Line 6 HX effects. If I'm doing something very particular, I just don't want to have a lot of gear, I'll just grab that. It's easy, it's a grab and go. I've got a couple different banks of patches that I've made for different purposes. In fact, when I play in the Beatles tribute band, it's great because I can kind of program in odd sounds for very particular songs, like pitch shifting for like a 12-string effect if I'm doing some George Harrison stuff. And then also we'll sometimes use that in the effects loop of my channel switchers. And sometimes use something like this, but it gets a little more complicated because I'll use the effects loops on those. So I can set up one loop to be in the effects loop of the amp and have one loop, you know, basically be out in front of the amp. So all in all, really enjoying it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.